Hello, and welcome to another edition of Women's Health and Vitality Unleashed. I'm happy today to have my guest, Miss Chris Vasiliadis, and I'm going to have her talk about herself in just a moment. But again, I want to welcome you to the show. And this show is about empowering women to take new steps to improve their emotional and mental health. And I'm your host, Coach Dr. Ann, double board certified physician and health coach. And I will be having ongoing master classes on health and wellness, particularly for women, but also there'll be some for men. So you can see the description for more information. And without further ado, I want to turn it over to my wonderful guest. So tell us all about yourself.
Hi, Dr. Ann. Thank you so much for having me here today. So I call myself a burnout buster. I basically specialize in helping folks, whether they're individuals or teams inside companies, live their lives with more vitality. And typically that's through a combination of coaching, training, and consulting, and helping them live with more mindfulness and with less stress.
Mindfulness is something that a lot of people don't really understand. I did not know much about it until I was studying for my lifestyle medicine board examination.
Okay.
But then when I got into it and they were talking about how mindfulness can actually kind of rewire the brain and impact your disease risk, I was like, wow, that's huge. And most people have no idea what it is. So tell us a little bit about mindfulness.
Sure. There's a definition I truly like, which is by John Kabat-Zinn. And if folks haven't heard of him, excuse me, he is a huge thought leader in the area of mindfulness. Back in the late 70s, he created the Center for Mindfulness at UMass Medical Center in Worcester, Massachusetts, in primarily starting out as a way to use mindfulness to help folks manage pain. And over the years, the research has continued to evolve in all different kinds of benefits about mindfulness. That center still exists, and there's people who teach John Kabat-Zinn's program called MBSR, or Mindfulness Based Stress Reduction, around the world. So he's written tons of books. He speaks on mindfulness. He appears at many different conferences. And the definition of his that I like is it's the awareness of paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and without judgment. So you can apply that to anything. I often say you can treat mindfulness as kind of an overlay, just like back in the day when I went to elementary school, we had those overhead projectors with those films over it.
I remember those.
Yeah, way before PowerPoint. That's what we had. And you can think of mindfulness as one of those films. It overlays onto whatever you're doing. You can overlay mindfulness onto how you're prepping a meal. You can overlay mindfulness onto a conversation. Again, if you think about it, this way of paying attention on purpose in the present moment and without judgment. There's another definition that I like from a gentleman by the name of Jeremy Hunter. He teaches at Claremont University, and he created a leadership program all grounded in mindfulness. And he says it's a way of managing the mind, the awareness of what's happening externally and internally. And it's a way of managing the mind so we can better respond to what's possible. And I find that's a very powerful definition too, because if we're fully aware of what's not only happening in front of us, but what's happening inside us, what emotions are getting churned, what sensations are we feeling, we can bring curiosity to that instead of judgment and decide, okay, how do I want to respond in this moment?
I particularly like the analogy with the overlay because I can definitely relate to that because when you talk about the overlay, and I go back to my school days as well, it's easier to conceptualize that.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that's kind of like part of my mindset when I was a child. And so I really like that. And those close to our age will certainly get that. The young people, the newbies, they may not remember that technology, but I think it's great.
Thank you.
So tell us your story. How did you get into this?
Yeah, so my business is called Priority Wellness. I started it in 2008. And 3 years before I started my practice, out of nowhere, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. which is a chronic disease of the central nervous system with no cure. That caused a whole bunch of lifestyle changes for me personally. Health and wellness ultimately became much more important to me, so much so that I wanted to help other people create their ideal state of health and well being. So I made the decision to change careers and get trained and certified as a health coach, and basically hung out my shingle in the fall of 2008. And when I first started my practice, I was primarily focused on helping people with stress management. And over the years, it's broadened into helping and specializing in burnout prevention.
That's wonderful. Burnout is another huge area.
Mm,
And when it comes to, I have to keep going back to lifestyle medicine because that's my baby. When it comes back to lifestyle medicine, stress is one of those six pillars that we know can increase your risk of various diseases and decrease your life expectancy. So burnout, particularly in America, particularly, with this hamster on a treadmill sort of mentality, that claims a whole lot more happiness in lives than I think people really get. I don't know how many times I've admitted people to the hospital. I was a hospitalist for most of my career.
oh, wow. Okay.
Hospitalists with chest pain, stroke symptoms, all sorts of things. We did this $1 million workup, and it just turned out to be stress and things they were dealing with, because there are definitely physiologic manifestations of the emotional things that we're dealing with. And frequently people don't even understand what's going on.
Right. Or they
So
think it's normal because everyone else is functioning that way. So they're
exactly.
like, well, this is
Burnout is
what's
normal.
required. And that's not the case.
No.
I'm a big proponent of one of my core messages is that success does not require chronic exhaustion. It's from energizing and aligning with what matters most.
Absolutely.
And I feel that you can use mindfulness as a superpower to achieve that sort of state. Because when you're mindful as a practice, that can help you pause before responding. And when you insert that pause, it enables you to take more wise action than you otherwise would when we're in kind of react mode of things instead.
Sure. So you've been doing this a while. Can you give us a couple of surprising examples from your practice of how people's lives were somewhat transformed, changed as a result of learning these techniques?
Yeah, one example that comes to mind is a client that I was working with, and she was working at a company that was going through a lot of reorganization, a lot of layoffs, and there was a lot of chaos in that environment at the time. And she was aware enough that she didn't want to get pulled into that drama. And but she knew she wanted, for a bunch of reasons, she wanted to stay at the company. So she came to me thinking, I need to figure out a way to coexist with this and not get pulled into the swirl. So we worked on a variety of different ways for her to implement mindfulness. And from a big picture perspective, I often tell folks you can think of building your mindfulness muscles via two different branches.
I
One
like
branch, one branch is basically using your life as a lab, and John Kabat-Zinn says this a lot, but using your life as a lab for practicing mindfulness. So life will give us all sorts of situations every day, and we can opt to, okay, I'm going to be present in this particular way on purpose in the present moment and without judgment. And from the Jeremy Hunter side of things, yeah, let me see what's going on internally and externally for me. So we practiced that. She made some very intentional and deliberate choices on, okay, here's the places I can choose to be more mindful at work, but also to prepare herself for the workday. When we're practicing mindfulness consistently, it influences how we're being. It influences the energy that we're bringing to things. It influences our mindset, our approach. So we created some ways for her to consciously build that into her day and decide, okay, looking ahead at the day, where might I be taken sideways? Where might things fall off? And how can I bring myself back? And what's the outlook that I want to bring to this conversation, to this meeting? So those are all different ways of using your life as a lab for mindfulness. So that's the one branch. The other branch is having some sort of meditation technique to help you do that. And meditation doesn't have to be long. I find a lot of times folks will say, oh, I don't have 45 minutes a day to meditate. Well, you don't need 45 minutes. You can meditate in 5. You can meditate in 1. It's as simple as pausing, settling in, and watching your breath. You can do that for a minute. You can do it for 20 minutes, whatever works for you. But it's a way of allowing ourselves to be still, allowing us to arrive in our body, and with no expectation. We're not trying to get anywhere or do anything. It's like, let me just be here and see what's up for me today.
Okay. Chris, tell us a little bit more about watching your breath. Can you explain that to the audience in more detail?
Yeah, you can think of it as just witnessing what's happening. So you can think of mindful meditation as a way of training our attention, training where our attention is going. So in witnessing the breath, and to back up a little bit, so I attended mindfulness-based stress reduction, John Kabat-Zinn's class back in 2013. And what they will teach you is to just simply watch what the breath is doing. So that can be, we're not trying to breathe any certain way. We're just watching how we're breathing in this moment. So that could be noticing, and whether you have your eyes open, closed, or glancing down at the ground, just noticing, okay, where am I noticing my breathing the most? Is it coming in and out of my nostrils, in and out of my mouth? Is my chest rising and falling? And my stomach rising and falling? And we're not analyzing or judging it. It's just, okay, this is how I'm breathing right now. Is the pace fast? Is it slow? Is it changing as I'm looking at it? So it's almost like there's this third person watching what you're doing, but you're that person. You're being this observer and witness to what's happening right now.
As you were talking about that, I was doing that. And it was surprisingly relaxing as I was just, focusing on really nothing else. I could hear you, but I was really focusing on my breathing, and I hadn't done that before.
Yeah. So it's not something that we're often trained to do, or like you said, well, what does that even mean to witness my breath? But it's as simple as how it sounds. You're just watching to see how you're breathing today, and not trying to breathe any certain way. And of course, there's certain different breathing techniques out there that one can wrap up into it. But a basic, simple way to start is just watch how you're breathing.
So what are some misconceptions about mindfulness?
Yeah. So one misconception is that it's the same as meditation, and it's not. You can think of mindfulness as kind of a big picture umbrella of the whole notion of paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and without judgment. Meditation is a tool, like I said, to build that muscle. So that's one thing, like they're separate. You can be mindful, you can theoretically be mindful and never meditate. But I would advocate meditating because it helps building that muscle. That's one misconception. Another misconception in being mindful is, well, that means I need to get my mind where it's quiet. Well, no, that's not true. In fact, your mind will probably never be quiet. It's more that you don't get pulled into the thought train that happens. Normally, the thoughts that we have are all taking us out of the present moment. They're either regrets about the past, or blaming ourselves or someone else for something that happened in the past, or it's focused on the future, the what ifs, what if this happens, worrying, what have you. And any of those kind of thoughts, they're typically not useful, and they take us out of being present. So again, it's if you think back earlier to what I said about using the breath as kind of your mindful currency to, like, okay, let me just focus back on my breath. That allows you to do this settling and just being with what's here in this moment. So that's how I would answer that question.
As far as watching your breath, that is something that is so easy, and it really did calm me in the few moments that I was doing it, just focusing on my breathing. And you can do it in the midst of a busy board meeting. You can do it driving down the street. You can do it any place, and it's free.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and you can use it strategically too. Like if someone's stressing you out, or you got distracted, or you just had a challenging conversation and you're about to go into another meeting, you can use your breath to kind of let you resettle, let you reground. And so, or before the phone rings, excuse me, when the phone's ringing and before you immediately pick it up, do you need to just take a few conscious breaths and before I pick that up, or take a few conscious breaths before you respond to a text or an email? So yeah, you can use it in a lot of strategic ways. And like you said, it's always there, it's always accessible, and it's free.
Exactly, free. No pills, no side effects, no
Yeah,
interactions.
yeah, absolutely.
So you wrote a book. Tell us about the book.
Yeah, so my book is called Ignition, and the subtitle is A Professional Woman's Guide for Energized Burnout Proof Living. I published that a few years back. It's always been a bucket list thing of mine to write a book, and I was just wanting to get to the place where I was passionate enough about a topic to write about it. So I put that book out, and it ticked a bunch of boxes for me. Like one, okay, bucket list item checked. But also, I realized I'm a company of one. I can't possibly reach every single person who could benefit from this content and information. So I wanted to design it in a way that people could self coach them through the different aspects that I have found that help you live in a burnout proof way. So that's another thing. And I also use it like a super business card. For example, if a company is interested in my services and either right before we meet or shortly after we meet, I'll offer them my book so they can learn a little bit more about me. I've used it as thank you gifts. And yes, and it's still available for people to purchase as well.
On Amazon or where will they get it?
It's on Amazon. Actually, this is what the book looks like right here, and it's also available on my website PriorityWellness.com, and you'll see a link called Ignition Book, and you can get it off there.
Okay. That's a lot of great information. But before I go, I want you to give us more information because I'm loving this. I love the mindful breathing. Give us some more information. What other things can we do?
Yeah. So I love that you asked that question because it's more about focus on how you're being versus the doing. So that can be a question to ask yourself, like, how do I want to be today? Could be a question that you ask yourself at the beginning of the day, like, okay, and what's the energy I want to bring? Looking at my what's on my to-do list today. You might even create a to-be list. Okay, how do I want to be when I'm doing this task? Or how do I want to be in this conversation with someone? How do I want to be when I'm running these errands? Whatever it is, when I'm speaking to a friend, partner, child, what have you. So it's making that being intentional on what we're bringing forth could be a way to start. I'm also offering a program in August. It's called a Month of Mindful Momentum, and it's a 4-week virtual program on Zoom to deepen your mindfulness practices. I invite everyone to start with the two branches of choosing to start playing with mindfulness as using your lab as a lab for mindfulness and playing with the different techniques and start a meditation practice. But then each week gives you more techniques for further building those muscles. And you can learn more about that on my website, PriorityWellness.com/mindful-month.
Okay. PriorityWellness.com/mindful month.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that is incredible. I very much enjoyed the information you've given me. I like the breathing and I also like the to be list. I have 2 teenagers. I'm going to start using them.
Yeah, it's something that they can get. It's really easy. Anyone can
I've never heard of that
understand that.
before. That's
Yeah.
brilliant. I love it.
Yeah. Well, we're so focused on doing. We're a very do conscious society. So it can be novel to start thinking. And again, that's another layer. Like, what's the to be layer that I'm putting on top of things? So that can be another way to look at it.
So, Chris, you're on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So, do they just put in your name? Do you have a URL that?
Yeah. So the URL, it's if you go to linkedin.com and then it's /in and then / my name, Chris Vasiliadis, you'll find me there.
Spell it for us, please.
Sure. CHRIS and then the last name, V as in Victor, A, S as in Sam, I-L-I, A, D as in David, I-S as in Sam.
Okay. So we have LinkedIn, we have your website. Is there any other way you want people to reach out to you, or are those the two major means?
Those are the two main ways, I would say. I'm most active on LinkedIn. When I have appearances and such, I'll post that on LinkedIn. I'll also have it on my website. And also on my website, on the homepage, I also do a monthly newsletter called Energizing You. That's free. And you can see to subscribe for that right on the homepage of my website.
Great. You've given some invaluable information that I'm going to personally use for me and my family, and I'm sure a lot of the listening audience will do the same. And I hope that people reach out to you to get more insight and wisdom. And I thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ann. Loved having this discussion with you today.
Okay. Bye-bye.